Hello, welcome to the Cyborg here at the StarCityGames.com Players Championship 2016 edition. I'm Nick Miller alongside Season 2 Invitational Champion Liam Lonergan.
Hey,
welcome.
Thank you.
Now, you've been qualified for the Players Championship for a while. Have
Yeah.
you been thinking, testing, preparing for it?
Yeah, I've been getting as much practice in as I can with my friends. They've been really helpful, and I hope I'm going to be well prepared for what I face in the tournament.
Okay, what is it kind of like your testing process? Do you have a group of friends or a team, or, have you guys got spreadsheets and looked at all of the players or anything?
Yeah, we all go over what we think is best in each of the respective formats, and then after deciding like which matchups beat the other matchups, or which deck beats another deck, we'll eventually make a decision on what I can play best and make sure it's a deck that's going to do well in the metagame.
Okay, well, one deck that did very well for you was your Modern Elves deck. The story was pretty great. You won an IQ with the deck.
Yeah.
Then you just crushed the Invitational. You didn't lose a match of Modern with the deck. And we're deck teching that deck this weekend because I think when people thought of you, the one thing they knew was that you were probably going to be playing Elves.
Yeah, certainly.
But in Modern, a lot of people kind of think they know what people are playing anyway and just kind of like, well, I'm just going to play the deck better than what people can do. Is that kind of your mindset going into this event?
Yeah, I feel that Elves has always been a good deck in Modern since Collected Company, and I think anyone that pilots it well enough can take it to a good finish in a tournament.
Okay, all right, well, we're going to dive into it right here. Not too much has changed since you won the Invitational with it. The Elves are still Elves, and they're still really good. So you've got 8 1-mana, Elves that tap for mana between Mystic and the Llanowar Elves. Then you have Nettle Sentinel here for kind of the beatdown draws.
Yeah.
None of these cards are ever changing, right?
Yeah, none of them I don't think I'm ever going to take out. Nettle Sentinel, a lot of people do take out, but I think it's just too good with Heritage Druid to ever consider that.
Okay, so we'll move on to the next slide. Speaking of Heritage Druid, we've seen Elves and Legacy just kind of combo off a lot based off of Heritage Druid, Nettle Sentinel, and then basically anything else at that point. Of course, you don't have, Natural Order, and you don't have Glimpse of Nature in this build, but you still kind of have these mini combos.
Yeah, like the combo Elves and Legacy, you can just like draw most of your deck. In this, you're not going to be drawing a ton of cards, but you can certainly dump your hand on turn 2 or 3.
Mm-hmm. Then you got Elvish Visionary to kind of help you refill. Then Dwynen's Elite, which of course your token now accompanies this card whenever you play it, I have to imagine, which is pretty great.
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun getting to use my own token. That's like the best part of winning the Invitational, I think.
Okay, and that's just kind of a stock 4 of in this deck?
Yeah, it's I used to only run like 2 copies of it, and I think it's just like really good in the grindy matchups, but it's also just good for explosiveness with Heritage Druid.
Sure.
So I think it's just an automatic 4 of.
All right. Now you got the added value of having your token come along with it, so you just basically have to play 4.
Certainly.
Okay, and then this is kind of where the deck really gets going. Of course, you have Quarter Calling and Collected Company later on, but these 2 Elves right here are what make the deck kind of give the ability to just run over people.
Yeah, they're both cards that they're kind of like kill on sight for other decks. If they don't get removed, they're often just going to take over the game and bring me a victory within the next turn or 2 of landing them.
Yeah, that's the crazy thing is, we knew this deck existed. It won the GP, the Modern GP in Charlotte, and then you won the Invitational, and a lot of people still didn't really have the deck on the radar, but once you just played any one of these, the Archdruid or Azuri, you just ran over and just took over the game immediately.
Yeah, they're both fantastic cards, especially Azuri if you have the mana to use them.
Mm-hmm. You got, then we're going to kind of run into your one-ofs here. You've got the Reclamation Sage, which is just a great tutor target. Of course, with Quarter Calling, you're going to have a bunch of targets like this.
Yeah.
Eternal Witness, Spellskite, Scavenging Ooze, these are all kind of just meta calls.
Yeah, in just about any matchup, at least 1 or 2 of these is going to be a card that I want to have every game. So often I end up taking 1 or 2 out, but the others are just going to be such slam dunks that it's worth having them in the main board.
Right. Spellskite is very good against Infect, Boggles, Death Shadow, all those kinds of decks. And Scavenging Ooze with the presence of Dredge right now seems like something you got to have.
Exactly. It's great against Dredge, Jund, any deck like that.
Snapcaster Mage decks.
Yeah.
All right, we'll keep on going here. Now, this is where we really kind of blast off. Collected Company is just a card that looked very good in Standard, and then people just started porting it over into mini decks in Modern. This deck might be the best one.
Yeah, I think so. The card is just so absurd when you can cast it, like on turn 3 especially. Just doing it on your opponent's end step, there aren't really too many instant speed sweepers or removal effects that come out of people's sideboards. Kozilek's Return is about it. So you can just surprise people with like an Archdruid or Azuri and win on the untap.
Right, Quarter Calling allows you to find exactly what you need. Cavern of Souls 4, just, you're playing a bunch of elves, there's no reason not to have this card, and while counterspells are kind of at a low right now, it's always nice to have.
Exactly.
And then you have some more utility lands we'll come up on. Pendlehaven, great in Infect, but also great in Elves, and, Tom Ross says this card should be in way more decks than it is.
Yeah, I agree. It's like such a good card considering that there really isn't non-basic removal in Modern like there is in Legacy, that I think it should pretty much go in any green deck as a one-off.
Okay, Nykthos, you're just going to generate a ton of mana occasionally with this card.
Yeah, it's a great great help for producing the mana that I need for Azuri. Sometimes you just don't have the Archdruid.
And then Razorwitch Thicket, it's just a forest most of the time, but your sideboard has a lot of white cards.
Exactly.
Which we'll get to here in a minute. And then splashing white as well, but also just giving you more card draw. Horizon Canopy, a great card in Modern.
Yeah, it's really helpful when you're just trying to grind through the opponent's sweepers and removal. Great against decks like Jund or Tron.
Bunch of force, because you're basically mono green, so you just get to kind of ignore a lot of the Blood Moon shenanigans, because you have a bunch of elves and a bunch of green mana.
Exactly.
Okay, so we'll move on into the sideboard here. Mentioned the white splash. Well, here you go. Path to Exile, basically the best removal. You don't really have any removal in the main deck, so it comes in here, against the super fast decks?
Yeah, it's pretty much for decks like Infect or Suicide Zoo, but it can also be like super helpful against decks that try to deploy like a huge threat to roadblock you, like Jund or something like that.
Kalitas and things like that. Fracturing Gust, a great just kind of catch-all to whatever, and you're one of the few decks that can actually just cast this card early because of how much mana you have.
Yeah, it's a card that not a lot of Affinity players expect. Like, only if they're really experienced, they're going to see it coming. And if they don't have a Ravager, you just gain 20 life,
Kitchen Finks, great card here, just good rate, gains a lot of life, I imagine, for burn.
Yep, comes in for burn, occasionally for a matchup like Jund.
All right, we'll move on through the rest here. More white cards here. You got your Eidolon, you've got Kataki, Aven Mind Sensor.
Yeah, these are kind of just like a trio of cards. Kataki not so much, but the other two are just kind of nets for combo decks. Aven Mind Sensor is good against Tron, it's good against Scapeshift type decks, and Eidolon of Rhetoric just is good for decks like Ad Nauseam or random Jeskai Ascendancy shenanigans.
Right. Are those the decks you're kind of fearing with this deck? Because, we saw you play against Dredge in the top 8 of the Invitational, and that matchup wasn't close. So you definitely goldfish quick enough to beat a lot of the combo decks?
Yeah, it's only a few decks. If they can get a turn 3 or turn 4 kill, those are really what you're looking to bring these in for. And just surprising people with getting these off chord can be invaluable.
Sure. All right, next slide, we'll see Burrington Forge Tender, and then one of the few new cards in your deck from the Invitational to now, Selfless Spirit.
Yeah, Burrington Forge Tender has been really good for protecting against red sweepers, but sometimes they have Damnation or things like Kozilek's Return, which isn't technically red, so you need a little bit of a boost to help with sweepers like Selfless Spirit, or with Selfless Spirit.
Chameleon Colossus, they called the best elf.
Yeah. It's fantastic, particularly against Jund, also Grixis if you happen to be facing it. Doesn't usually come in against Abzan like people might think because of Path to Exile.
Sure. And I believe that's everything. So, we got one more page. Little Infect hate here with Malira.
Yep.
Little Revoker action. And then another Lord.
Infect is pretty tough to beat without drawing a Spellskite or Malira. They can usually get like a turn 3 kill. It's pretty common, and I just don't go that fast, so I need something like Malira or Spellskite to slow them down.
Okay, talk about the last Lord here, because the Force Walk is a relevant ability.
Yeah, it certainly is. It's for decks like Jund, or especially like Abzan combo lists, because they tend to come up the board just like I do, and it makes it really tough to get through them unless I have an Azuri in play. And this is just one extra answer to try to get through all the stuff that they have on board and get the win.
Okay. Well, this deck, you have a ton of experience with this deck, a great record with this deck, and I think, no one else can really think to be on this deck. So how many sideboard slots or how much deck building, decisions can be based off of one person? You're kind of
Yeah.
just presenting the threat. Can you beat the deck?
Exactly. It's a great deck. I think it's going to serve me well.
Okay. Anything else about the tournament? Feel excited? How do you feel prepared?
Nervous. I feel pretty prepared, but I think I'm going to be able to do well. So.
Alrighty. Well, Liam, you earned your spot here. You're now here. 16 people. See if you can take down another tournament. For Liam, Nick Miller here in the sideboard. Stay tuned to StarCityGames.com all weekend long for the action here in Roanoke.